good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending upon where you are in the world. This is Walter Davis with Progress in the World, and we're here today with my co-host, Nilsa Acevedo, and her show is Progress in Your World. And we have the distinct honor to have some very beautiful people here that are facing some great difficulty, and we want to highlight their story. And so we have Chris and Kim Garnier, and they're going to tell us their story about what's going on with them and their family in Poway, California. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thank you, sir. How are you?
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Kim.
Thank you.
Well, I know something about your story. I have sort of an idea of what's happening with you. And it's just totally horrible, the situation that you're in. And but before I do that, Nilsa, would you introduce yourself?
My name is Nilsa. My show is Progress in Your World. I called it Progress in Your World because I want to bring positive information and interview positive people for my shows that will give you some information, positive information that will make progress in your world.
Exactly. That's what we're all about. We're about making progress here. And we're accessible to everyday people to tell their stories all over the world on both our radio and television shows. So if you have an issue that you want to bring out to the public, then don't hesitate to contact us. We're totally accessible, and we get worldwide views. So with that, I'd like to learn some more about you and your backgrounds in terms of who you are first. So can you give the audience some idea of who you are first?
Sure, I guess I'll start. My name is Chris Garnier. I grew up in Poway, California, which is a suburb of San Diego, California. After graduating from high school, I took a full football scholarship to the University of Hawaii, where I earned a bachelor's degree in both English and political science. Played a lot of great football too, which was a lot of fun. And my senior year, I actually became the senior, the president, the student body president of the University of Hawaii. So I was the first black president, and also the first person that wasn't from Hawaii to become the president, the student president of the university. After that, I left Hawaii and took a commission as an officer in the United States Marine Corps, where I left at the rank of captain after going to Iraq twice, Afghanistan once. I was a CH-53 Echo helicopter pilot in both, again, Iraq and Afghanistan for Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Iraqi Freedom. So that's my main background. After getting out of the military, I was left as a single dad. So it was me and my son, and we kind of took on the world there for a little while. He was 4 when I got out of the Marine Corps, and my parents still live in Poway. So me being a single father, raising a young man, probably the best way to do it is get a little bit of help from your mom and dad. So that's what I did. I ended up moving back towards that area and enrolling my son back into the same school district, Poway Unified School District, that I grew up in and that I attended. So that's my background.
Well, that's quite a distinguished background. I mean, you were a helicopter pilot. You did combat tours. You got a great education. So you're not some snuffball. You're someone that's got a good background, a good solid family background, and a single parent, a single father. That's very rare. All the things you said are rare.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I would say that I'm very proud of my background and the things that I've accomplished. As I still feel as a young man, and I still have a lot more to accomplish. So from there, I was fortunate after my divorce from my first wife to reconnect with my wife now, Kim, who we actually reconnected through Facebook when I was in Afghanistan, and she was going through a divorce. She was a single mom, once I got back from Afghanistan, we reconnected with our children, because my stepdaughter now and my son were only a year apart, and it was able to their connection, or their being children and us being single parents really were the catalyst to allow us to be able to reconnect. Because she also went to high school, elementary school, everything else throughout the Poway Unified School District. So that's how Kim and I got together and we're married.
Yeah.
So you both went to the same school?
Yes, we did.
We did.
I grew up in San Diego, went K through 12 at Poway Unified School District. Chris and I knew each other in high school. We were just friends. He was too cool for me. But I went to San Diego State, and after that, I got married. I had a daughter, moved away, went through my divorce, and reconnected. I wanted to find friends that I knew and trusted from my past that I could bring my daughter around. And for a long time, we were just friends. And I saw what a good man and a good father Chris was, and it developed into more, and we got married, and now I'm so proud to call him my husband.
Yeah, yeah. 2 years after actually 1 month after we got married, she got pregnant, and we have our son now, Quentin, who's almost 2. So we have Winslow, who will be 9 in July. Talia, who just turned 8 in March, and then Quentin, who's ours together, who's 2, who's really completed our family. It's been amazing. Really has been spectacular to have him. So.
Connected the circle.
Absolutely
Yes,
right. It absolutely did.
Yes.
Yeah.
So basically an all-American family. I mean,
Yeah.
very similar to my
Modern
family.
Modern family. That's
Filled
right.
with love, a
Lots
lot
of
of love.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
So give me then a synopsis of the story that you want to tell the public. I mean, because I know something of the horror. Give me a brief synopsis of that story.
You know, I guess I'll start. Probably the best way to start is the thing that kind of pushed me over the edge, I guess, where I really felt that I had to start asking for help from other people besides myself, and I had to ask for help from the public, and ask for help from attorneys and going to court and things of that nature, or actually honestly putting my foot down, I guess, was as I told you before, I was a single dad with Winslow at this school, his school now, which is called Painted Rock, which is part of the Poway Unified School District. And for the very first year, it was just kind of me and Winslow. As I was taking him to school, I was the room dad, the only room dad for his kindergarten year. So I would come in and I would read with the kids twice a week and do all the things that I thought I had to do since his mom wasn't around, and I had to play both roles. So there was a principal that was there, that was Winslow's principal, great guy. Kim and I ended up getting married when Winslow was going into first grade and Talia was getting ready to start kindergarten. So Talia started kindergarten at Painted Rock, and Winslow was in first grade at Painted Rock. And the same principal was there all up until this past summer, and he was fantastic. He was great, welcoming, really accepted our family. You know, the area that we live in, the school district that we're part of, it's less than right around 3% of African Americans are black, and predominantly a white affluent area. So Kim and I's relationship, her being obviously white and me being black, is something that's not big within our community, within our area. Though I grew up there.
when you say big, you mean not accepted, or?
It's not the norm.
It's not the norm, and we're starting to find out that in many aspects it's not accepted, which is kind of surprising, honestly. Considering that it's 2015, it's really surprising, actually.
But then we got a new principal.
We did. We got a new principal, and the new principal wasn't as opening. The new principal wasn't as welcoming. In fact, she almost went out of her way to make sure that I stayed off the campus, that I wasn't around my son, our children, my daughter, my stepdaughter. And it was very unusual going from a principal who was extremely accepting to a principal who went out of her way to make sure that I stayed off the campus for the most part.
And we hoped that there was a misunderstanding. We hoped that there was a reasonable explanation for our treatment. We asked to meet with the principal many times, and not one time did she meet with us. She made no efforts to reconcile this strained relationship with parents at her school. So we reached out then to the superintendent, who was our former principal. We knew him. Chris knew him very, very well. And we asked for help. He arranged a meeting for us.
He did. He. The challenging part is with the superintendent that we have now. As Kim said, we had known him. He was our principal, our former principal when we were in high school, and now the superintendent of Poway Unified School District. And him and I would talk about a lot of racial issues, and the reason why was because I was also a teacher. Once I got out of the Marine Corps, I started to teach within the Poway Unified School District, and I started to see, my eyes went from being a student within the Poway Unified School District to now a teacher in the Poway Unified School District, and I started to see how a lot of the young black children were treated, lower socioeconomic kids from a lower socioeconomic background, Hispanic children. They were just treated a great deal differently. And I felt that the superintendent was a good friend of mine, and it's something that I could bring to his attention. And we would sit and we would talk, and we would have these discussions over coffee, and we did this probably for a good 6 months. And I thought that it was a safe place to bring him, to talk to him about, I feel that the principle that we have now is somewhat discriminatory towards my family. And we begged, talked to him many times to sit down and have a conversation with this principal. And finally he agreed to it. And again, this is a gentleman who I believed was a close friend of ours. After we sat down with the principal and the superintendent, 2 days later I had a letter at my door that said cease and desist, and a week later there was a order for a temporary restraining order to stay away from the school. More goes into that. Part of the non-accepting part that I believe was there's a thing called the Student Site Council at every school within Poway Unified School District, and they'll elect a representative, a parent representative from that particular school that has the opportunity, the ability to talk to the Board of Education. So I ran for that position again because I love to be around my children. Being away from Winslow when I was in Iraq and Afghanistan, I was away from him for almost 2 years. So now it's almost my time to get back to him. So I wanted to spend as much time as I possibly could with him at school. So I decided to run for this Student Site Council. After I'd won the election, the new principal had sent an email out to the entire school, all the parents, and said the election has been voided, there's been a technical difficulty. We'll have a new election, and within the new election she reduced the dates completely, asked for a mandatory identification to vote.
And that was the first time in the history of Poway Unified School District that identification was ever required to vote in an election of this kind.
Yeah.
There was police presence during the election.
Yeah.
And everything within the district's power to make Chris seem like a villain was done. They hired 24-hour security for the principal. No threats were ever made against her. No violence was ever committed. Nothing of that sort. It was smoke and mirrors to deflect from them trying to keep Chris from being a participant at the school.
Yeah. And nor have I ever been arrested. I'm a good to be a Marine Corps officer. You have to, as you know, you have to be the top of the top. The security clearances that you need, the ability to to go out to Pensacola and get yourself through flight school and all the things that I put myself through, there's no way in the world that I would jeopardize any of that. So my record is spotless. So the fact that a temporary restraining order is placed on me, and this lady now is saying that I've threatened her, is actually extremely surprising and actually hurtful, because now they're saying that I can't go to school with my children, and in particular Winslow, since I am his only legal guardian, because his mom is not really in the picture. So now
during the school year,
during the school year I'm his legal guardian. So I would continue to call it almost a separate but equal, because now they're saying that Winslow can go to school, but yet his father, his legal guardian, there's no parent advocate for him.
That doesn't make sense.
No, ma'am.
And I believe that the district and the principal came after Chris because he's been a whistleblower in this district since he came back as an adult and witnessed the discrimination and discrepancies as a teacher. He witnessed them as a child growing up in the district. He came back, nothing had changed. He witnessed them as a teacher and then as a parent as well.
And Kim is correct. I have been a whistleblower. At the same high school that we went to, there was graffitied F niggers at the all spelled out at the high school that Kim and I graduated from, and now that I was actually coaching at and teaching at. So I made a huge deal out of it. I'm a black man from this school, and I again serve my country, and that kind of language is, as we know, is inappropriate and leads to terrible things, violence, all kinds of things. So the problem is the district didn't nip it in the butt. They didn't nip it in the bud. They didn't say, they didn't try to find who the perpetrator was. And the more that I put pressure on the school district to figure out who this person is, the more resistance and pushback I got from the administration.
And 2 years later, there was a death threat on Burn Book. And that was classified as cyberbullying. And most people, parents, students, teachers, staff, didn't even understand that it was a death threat. Can you explain the death threat a little bit more?
Yeah, the death threat came out to a high school called Del Norte, which is another high school, the second high school that I taught at within Poway Unified School District. And the message came out and said, I am tired of all of these effing niggers. I'm going to bring my AR-15 and shoot them all up. So me hearing this, me being a black man within this community, I went immediately down to Del Norte the next day and sat there. The police presence were there. And I continued to ask, what are you going to do about this? Are you guys going to do something about this? And the district has decided not to pursue this issue or pursue this topic. And Kim and I made sure, because the superintendent went on, sent out an email, a video email, saying that cyberbullying had been committed, and that we have to stop cyberbullying and we have to get rid of Burn Book, but never said what the issue was. So Kim and I made it our mission to go out and let people know exactly what the cyberbullying was, and that it's not cyberbullying, that this is a death threat against black folks, and that's a scary proposition for Kim and I, considering that we have black children, and it's a scary proposition for anyone, because if a shooter, per se, young shooter comes in slowly looking for black kids, niggers as he says, white kids could get caught in the crossfire. Teachers, doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, it should be our responsibility to make sure that we're protecting all of our children within schools, and allowing that kind of ignorant talk or ridiculous threats go through without finding the culprit or the perpetrator is inappropriate and ridiculous, and it's something that I continue to push, and I firmly believe that the result of this restraining order had more to do with me pushing the issue, pushing these issues within race. And let me back up as well too. There was, after I had lost the election, after I won the election, and the principal had thrown out the results of the election, and said that we need identification of all these things. I know my history and understand the Jim Crow laws, understand all these things that have come up to prevent people of color to have power, to have authority, to make decisions. So I felt that I had no other choice. Kim and I had made a decision, so I designed a little pamphlet with a slave on there, using the word word nigger, and saying that the principal's decision to throw out my election or throw out the results of the election is that of tied into of control of black folks, and that was me making a strong point, because up until then, 3 years up until then, I had continued to make points of, hey, you don't see this, you don't see this, you don't see that, and now I'm in a situation where a principal from a school that I had been at way before she had even showed up, had now made things a lot more challenging for me. So I felt I had to make a strong nonviolent point. So my strong nonviolent point was, this is what this principal has done, and this is how I feel as a black man. I'm being chained. I'm being I'm in chains, and I feel as a slave again, as you're trying to prevent me from being around my children or having some kind of authority or some kind of power.
And Chris uses First Amendment rights to share this information with people, and he used the words of the district, the N-word that has been spray painted and used. There's been noose incidences, and they've been categorized as misunderstandings. Chris was called a boy by a district official. The man said to him, "You're pushing it, boy." These are the words of the Poway Unified School District, the N-word, boy. And we pushed some buttons and we said, let's hand this information out so the people who aren't directly affected by it know what's happening.
That's right. That's right.
And we feel confident about that choice, and I don't think we would do anything differently.
People
are talking.
People are talking, and I think that's what Kim and I wanted to happen. Is we wanted people to see the racial injustice or lack of tolerance per se within the school district, and not. It feels like no one else wanted to talk about it.
So, what were the results of the second election?
The results of the second election was I had lost, and I had a restraining order, a temporary restraining order placed against me.
Do you know about how many votes you lost by?
We weren't given any of this information. We've asked the school district for the information because it has to be public information. And they said they'd give it to us. They're going to charge us for it, and hundreds of bucks for the information. And
if I pay $200, I can access that information. Just also a side note, Chris asked for the rules regarding the election prior to running. No rules were provided, not one. And after the election, the reasons stated for overturning the results were that he violated the rules.
And what were the rules that he violated, supposedly?
Well, at the end of the day, the way that the voting was set up was we were given an email was sent out from the principal to all the parents of the school with a PDF file attached to it that had the 4 candidates that were running for the student site council on there.
And their short bios.
And their short bios. And the instructions were to print up the PDF file on your own and bring it in and drop it off at the office.
Or use one at the office.
Or come into the office and use one.
It was a very casual election. Most parents that we spoke with were not even aware of the election.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. So Kim and I went out and we campaigned as much as we could. We passed out donut holes to the kids and Gatorade and water with our 3 other kids, mm-hmm. just for more participation within our family. And
you modified the.
And I ended up modifying on the ballot. I ended up putting a picture of me and my at that time my little 1-year-old son of me holding him. So as parents were coming in, I said, I told them, hey, here's a ballot. You don't have to vote for me, but if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and drop it off. So we had printed up probably, I don't know, 50 of these ballots. But at the end of the day,
It was a campaign tool. These are all of the candidates on here. This one with the picture, this is Chris. Please read about him. Read through all the candidates and vote. It was an encouraging tool to get people to vote, to get people involved, and it was not against the rules. And
again, but no rules were provided for
Yeah.
us. So
That is really something that I'm typically used to hearing in North Carolina.
that's right. That's right. That's right.
You mentioned that there were some incidents that occurred that you didn't feel were fair with regards to children of color, Latino children, black children. Can you elaborate further on some of those incidences?
Sure, absolutely. I'll say, you know, when I was teaching at Del Norte, which is a high school within Poway Unified School District, I taught a class called Academic Success. And Academic Success is a class basically for kids that are struggling. Within Poway Unified School District, most of the kids that are struggling happen to be usually children of color. I had one young lady that I can think of in particular who was struggling a great deal. Her background, though, is her mother has been incarcerated for drug use, probably her entire life. She has 7 brothers and sisters, so when this young lady would go home, homework was not her number one priority. Her number one priority was really to take care of her brothers and sisters, which is something that a lot of people within the community that we've grown up in, the community that we're talking about, just don't know. But I knew what was going on really well with her, and she was struggling immensely within a math class. And the truth of the matter is that she didn't have the skills to make herself to get herself through the math class. She wasn't taught these skills prior. They advanced her, and she was failing. And I had talked to her current math teacher, and asked him, what is he going to do about it? And his answer was, well, she needs to come in and have study time, have study groups. The typical teacher answer, which I said that's fine for most kids, but this young lady has different circumstances. Long story short, I ended up getting her into another class, and her teacher came to me and said, came to her and said, hey, you need a $100 graphing calculator to be in my class. Now this young lady came to me and was in tears and crying and more of anything of the embarrassment that she couldn't afford this, and she didn't want to go tell her teacher this. I told her I would take care of it. When I went to go to speak with her teacher about this graphing calculator, her teacher basically right away, and I don't know why she said this to me, but right away said, I'm not even all the way white. And I said, I'm not really quite sure why you're bringing up that topic. I'm just trying to help out this young black lady, this young black student that we share, and try to figure out how she's going to get a graphing calculator. And the response from this teacher was, that's not my responsibility, it's not my issue. I ended up buying her the graphing calculator myself, and to this day, she ended up leaving Poway Unified School District, going to another school district where kids look like her. She ended up with fantastic grades. Emailed me her grades, which were 2 A's and 2 B's. So proud of her. And to this day, we still keep in connection. And she just graduated just last year.
Wow. So I've seen that because I've done a lot of work in terms of doing after-school mentoring for kids with Dr. Ida Green and others.
Sure.
So there appears to be a sustained pattern of inequality.
Absolutely.
and unequal treatment for parents and students within the Poway School District. And now to elaborate further on this, Dr. Carol Wayman in the 1970s was able to get the police forces, the sheriff's department, the Poway police, San Diego police force, to stop discrimination towards people of color in terms of moving outside of the designated area for San Diego. There was an area that only that black people were only allowed to live in these areas. And so Poway was part of that. Lemon Grove, believe it or not, was a part of this thing. And so it appears as though we're still fighting this battle.
Absolutely.
That this is still going on. That is not over yet. And will it ever be over? Sounds like there's a lot of. So what was the rationale for a restraining order to be placed on you? What did you do to cause that?
I spoke my mind. I was honest, and to be an honest black man in a white community makes you a threat.
Honest, more outspoken.
I think honest and outspoken. I think both those combined absolutely make you a
You can't
threat.
speak.
You cannot
can
speak.
be honest, but you
cannot speak. Yes,
defend
ma'am.
yourself.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
And I have done just about everything that Chris has done. I passed out flyers. I spoke with district officials. I did everything that he did, and I don't have a restraining order against me.
How do they treat you when you go to the school?
I'm a Garnier. I'm part of this family. And they treat me as an annoyance, but they treat Chris as a threat. There's a difference. They don't like me. They don't want to deal with me.
But they accept you.
But they accept me. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yeah.
Interesting, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Now, are any officials actually helping you with this issue right now?
We have the ACLU involved. They're very interested in this. We filed an anti-SLAPP lawsuit. We believe that the restraining order was simply to squelch his voice and impede his freedom of speech. And the ACLU is interested in helping us with that. We have other organizations that are aware of our story, and they want to get involved and help us as well.
What about within the Poway School District? Are any officials within the Poway School District amenable to helping you?
We absolutely do. I would say that Kimberly Beatty, President Kimberly Beatty, has been instrumental in listening to us and actually coming to our home, hearing our story. I would say that Charles Sellers, who is a member of the Board of Education as well, has been instrumental in listening to us and hearing our story. But at the end of the day, there's 5 board members, and 2 out of the 5 have come and actually to our house and met with us. The other 3 refused to meet with us. They refused to talk to us, refused to have any conversation with us.
And I'd like to add that teachers at our children's school are amazing.
They are absolutely amazing.
They've known us since Chris was a confused single dad trying to get his little one enrolled in kindergarten. And they've been lovely.
Amazing.
And I've heard in roundabout ways how they've tried to help us. They're very fearful for their jobs, and they don't want to put their neck out on the line too much, but they've whispered to me in the halls, "I'm so sorry for what your family's going through." Or I found out that they've written to reporters saying, "This is a good family, this is a good father, and this is not right." The teachers at the school are amazing people, and
Absolutely.
I'm so grateful to them.
Yeah, I agree.
They know us.
Yeah, but the people on top that actually can make decisions and help us out. Again, the current superintendent, who I believe was a close friend of mine, but he's the one who gave the order to put the restraining order against me. Those people are the people that we grew up with, that we within the same school district would come to our aid. But that's not the case at all. In fact, there's a current Board of Education member who used to babysit Kimberly, and she has refused to meet with us, and that's unfortunate.
Wow. So I want to make you aware of the RICO law, which is basically an anti-racketeering law, which has a very low threshold in terms of holding officials accountable. And this is how we've had judges removed in Pennsylvania for having private prisons, for example, and sending kids there to be locked up. So keep that in mind. And those of you watching, the RICO law is something that's accessible to all of us in terms of proving racketeering. And so that can be, it was actually developed to fight back against the mafia, but it can be used against other officials just as well.
That's very interesting. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so we're going to try to distribute this story wide and far, and we're going to encourage everyone that's listening and watching to please distribute this throughout your social media. And if you have people that you know of in a legal capacity that might be able to lend a hand with this, we certainly appreciate that. Just look at the contact information that's going to be displayed at the end of the video, or that's embedded within our radio shows here to get in contact with us. Tell me more. There has to be more. There's a lot more.
There's a lot more. You know, also, as you had asked me earlier about more intolerance of young people of color, as I was a teacher at Del Norte, same year as the young lady that I was talking about, I had another black student who was going to an expulsion hearing for slapping, hitting another kid. But the other kid had called him a nigger. So the kid who was in my class, a black kid who was called a nigger, was being sent to an expulsion hearing. I knew the kid well because he had been with me for an entire year, and I knew his mom well. One thing is, me being a teacher, I would always reach out to my students' parents, because parents they're the key to their kids' education, honestly. You know, we think the schools are, but at the end of the day, parents are truly the key to their kids' education. So I as he was going to this expulsion hearing, his mom had called and said, "Mr. Garnier, could you please come speak on behalf of my son?" And I said, "By all means, I would, absolutely," because they were talking about kicking him out of the entire district. As I showed up at the school to speak on his behalf, I was shuffled back because I was a member of the district, and I had my badge on, and I went back with all of the other district employees, waiting for my opportunity to speak on this young man's behalf. As a break had come from the expulsion hearing, the young man had walked out, and I could see that he was a bit nervous, so I smiled at him and said, "You're going to be okay. You'll be fine." And there was a gentleman, another official that came out who I'd never seen before. And I guess he was the one that was running the expulsion hearing, and he came up to me and told me, "Stand up." And I'm a former Marine. I almost took it as an order. So I stood up immediately, and he said, "Who are you?" And I explained to him, I'm Mr. Garnier. My name is Chris Garnier. I'm here to speak on this young man's behalf. And he said, "Well, if you're here to speak on his behalf, you need to go wait with everyone else, all of his family, over in the waiting room." In other words, the black people in the waiting room. That's the way that I took it. And I said, "Well, sir, I'm a teacher here. All the other teachers and employees are back here." And he insisted that I leave. So I got in my car and I drove home. I drove back to work, back to the school. Kind of disheartened that I was talked to by this man in a very aggressive tone. In fact, when he was talking to me, it was so aggressive. I looked at him and I said, "Sir, why are you so angry at me right now? It seems like you want to take me outside and fight me. Why are you so mad at me?" And he threatened at that time to, I said, "You either need to leave now or we'll call security on you." That's why I left. I was like, "I don't need any security call on me. I'm a teacher, a new teacher in this district. I'm here to speak on this young man's behalf, but I'm not here to cause a bunch of problems at this juncture." So I went back to school. I get a phone call from his mom, and his mom says, "Mr. Garnier, can you please come back to the district office? My son really needs your help for you to speak on his behalf." And I explained to her that I'd just gotten kicked out of this expulsion hearing, or told that I needed to leave. And she said, "No, you're on the list. They know that you're going to speak. Please come back." So I got in my car, drove back to the district office, and I was met and I sat in the hall or in the waiting room with his family and all of the folks that were there. And a white gentleman came out and from the glass room where all the teachers were and said, "Are you Chris Garnier?" And I said, "Yeah, I am." He said, "I would like to speak with you privately." I said, "Okay." So he called me back and said, "You can't speak on behalf of this child." And I asked him why. And he said, "It's a public hearing. You need to be on the list." And I said, his mother told me that I was on the list. And he said, "Well, if you're more than welcome to write down information about this child if you want, but you can't speak on his behalf." I told him how would I have the opportunity to write down any information concerning that the expulsion hearing was happening right now. And he again told me that I was not permitted to be there. So I got in my car and I left. I get a phone call from a friend of their families who was also speaking, a black woman who was speaking on behalf of TJ, speaking on behalf of the young man. And she said, "Where are you? We really need you to come back and speak." And I explained to her I'd just been kicked out of this place twice, ma'am. And she said, "No, you're on the list. You're more than welcome to speak. And at this juncture, my child's school is done. I had picked him up, so I'm no longer in my work clothes. I'm in my basketball clothes because I was his basketball coach." And I said, "I can come back over, but I don't look professional at all. I'm in my basketball clothes, and I have at that time, my 5-year-old son with me. But I will come back on this young man's behalf because I believe that it's the right thing to do, and he needs an advocate." So I showed back up with my son. I asked the young man's family if they mind watching my son while I go in and speak on this young man's behalf. As I walked in, they said that's fine. They watched Winslow there for a couple minutes, and as I walked into the meeting room, the same gentleman who was aggressive to me initially was in there. And as you walked in, it was a large conference table. And on one side of the conference table were 5 white folks, vice principals, this individual who was in charge of the expulsion hearing. And on the other side of the board table was 5 black folks, which included the one lady who was speaking on his behalf. 4 black folks. The young man's mother, the young man, and myself. So as I sat down, the individual who was already aggressive to me told me, "Go ahead and take a seat, Chris." And I said, "Can you please refer to me as Mr. Garnier, as I've referred to you as Mr." And I also said that this is my student. My student knows me as Mr. Garnier. Please refer to me as Mr. Garnier and show me the exact same respect that I've shown you. From there, he was extremely irritated, the man that I told this to, and then told me, "You're pushing it, boy." From there, I had a strong reaction, and I said, "Listen, that's not what you do. You do not call a black man a boy." I explained to him my background, who I was. Though I may be in my basketball clothes, I'm a war veteran, that I have confirmed kills, that I am well educated. I gave him a list of things. That I am at USC right now working on my master's in education. I went through the litany of things. As he's yelling for me to get out, he's calling the police for me to leave immediately. So I told him, "You don't have to call the police." I got myself up, walked out, grabbed my child, and left, and never had the opportunity to speak on the young man's behalf, though I tried. And it still burns me that I wasn't able to speak on his behalf. But all my effort was to speak on this young black man's behalf and say that I understand the challenges of being a young black man, young black kid, being called the N-word within this school district, because it happened to me myself when I was many times when I was going through the school district as a student. So to see it as a teacher to one of my students, really is more of a feeling of true pain, I guess, simply because I realized that I've graduated from high school now over 20 years and things still hadn't changed. And it's sad. It's hurtful.
Well, I'm very sorry that you went through that, and I really admire you both for standing up and sticking together through this, and we're going to be, on your side to the best of our ability to help you get this information out. So, you've seen niggers scrawled on the walls. You have been treated unfairly in the election. You've been kicked out of a hearing, a expulsion hearing in which parents wanted you to testify on behalf. You've seen a pattern of discrimination against Latino and black and children of color within the school district as a parent as well, as an official within that, and treated with great disrespect by a number of the administrators there. Give me some more.
I had another student, Latino student, who's again part of my academic success class, and he was a senior who had to obviously graduate that year, but his mother came on hard times. A Latino student. His mother had come on hard times, and his father lived in Texas. Him and his mother lived in an apartment, small apartment, one-bedroom apartment within the Poway Unified School District. And this young man would get out of school at 3 o'clock, get to work at Walmart by 4, and get off at work from Walmart at 1 a.m. in the morning. The kid wanted to do his work but needed more time, and went to his teacher. His teacher, a couple of his teachers, one in particular, was very much against giving this child more time. And I explained to this teacher this young man's situation, and her response was very much like the other teacher's response. It's not really my problem. It's not my issue. It's not my deal. And again, we're talking about a 17-year-old kid Latino kid who's trying to provide for his family, and anyone who has to leave one job, as we could say, school, from 7 a.m. till 3 p.m. and go to another job, a real job, to make money from 4 p.m. till 1 a.m. in the morning, they're going to struggle with their schoolwork. And they're going to struggle making it through. Again, the attitude of honestly entitlement within Poway Unified School District is so prevalent. It's so real. It's so great that the district and officials fail to see that there are real life issues and real life problems that usually are within the Poway Unified School District are held by people of color. And instead of recognizing and understanding a lot of these issues, it's easier to allow them to fail, allow them to believe that I can't make it here within this school district, and that's why a lot of them pick up and go to a place where people look like them. And that's not appropriate, it's not okay, especially within public education. Public education, all children should have the same opportunities, the same rights down the line, and it's unfortunate within the Poway Unified School District that those thoughts aren't shared.
So you see a pattern of children just giving up and leaving, or their families just giving up and leaving the Poway Unified School District in San Diego County.
Yes, sir. That's right. I do.
That's ridiculous and totally unfair.
It is.
It keeps the test scores high. It keeps the district prestigious. It keeps them on top 10 lists. And we get rid of kids that don't fit the mold. They don't fit the mold, and they're forgotten. They're cast aside. Chris found a young lady who couldn't read. He diagnosed the problem pretty quickly, and they couldn't find a solution for her.
They said we have no, and she was in high school. She was a young black girl, freshman, and she could read. She just couldn't. After I asked her what she read, she couldn't retain the information. She couldn't tell me, regurgitate or tell me what she had just read.
There was no connection.
There was
to the
no
words on
connection
the
to the
page.
words on the page, so I go back and I tell her English teacher, have you done any reading with this young lady? And the response was, well, she's a freshman. Why would I need to do any reading with her? And then I asked this teacher, how has she done in your class? The teacher's response was, and I had already known this, was she's failed everything. My response back to this teacher was, well, what have you done about that? Her response back, the teacher's response back to me was, that's not really in my business. That's her being lazy. It wasn't her being lazy at all. It was her not having the opportunity for someone to really sit down and assess her. And she hadn't gone to the Poway Unified School District. She was just a young black girl that showed up her freshman year within the Poway Unified School District. So instead of giving her the opportunity to do some kind of remediation or anything of that nature, they just allowed her to fail. Again, another young lady who, instead of failing, her parents decided they're going to pack her up and move her to another school district.
Unbelievable.
That girl, was she from the same class that you were teaching?
She was from the, yes ma'am, she was the same class I
Now
was
you
teaching.
just mentioned 4 students. You went and did the follow-up, and there was no response. My question to you is, why did they have you in that type of class if they're not fixing the problems? Why did they put you there? Or why do they have that kind of class there?
I think that's a great question. I think that the principal at Del Norte, and I still consider him to be a very, very close friend of mine. He's a good man, and we would sit, and he would always say that I'm ruminating. I'm sorry, that I'm emoting. He's like, Chris, you love to emote, and he would always tell me that within Poway Unified School District, change, it's a slow process, and I just don't believe that. I don't believe that changing the way that we treat people that are struggling has to be a slow process.
Most people who take the impact teaching jobs that Chris took are people who want to get into teaching. They put the most at-risk kids with teachers who have little to no experience. And it's a babysitting job. It's a stepping stone for the teachers, and it keeps the kids in a class separate from the achievers.
The difference is that I had a prior job as a Marine Corps officer, and I'm sorry about that, jeez. Well, I don't. Okay. I had a former job as a Marine Corps officer, and I wasn't just going. This wasn't my first job out of college as teaching. So when I went in as an impact teacher, I took it as this is my job to help these young people achieve. I'm not trying to excel to the next teaching level. This is the level that I want to be at. I want to be with the kids that are struggling the most, and that's the reason why I went into the teaching profession out of the Marine Corps in the first place.
And Chris kept these kids in a place where they had hope. He gave them hope, and he had expectations of them, and many of them never had that before. He would come in on Saturdays, not getting paid. He'd come in on Saturdays. He'd feed these kids. A lot of these kids were hungry, and he would be in contact with their parents, and it was a whole new establishment for these kids and their families, and many of them attribute their graduation and their success to Chris. One student actually asked for Chris to hand him his diploma.
If my students had a D or F, and that was my job was to monitor the rest of their classes. And as I monitored their classes, if kids had a D or F within their classes, immediately I called their parents and say, I'm going to be here on Saturday. And my classroom was open from every Saturday from 8 to 12. I would bring in breakfast burritos or donuts. I'd buy them lunch or pizza or whatnot, and tell their parents the only people that are going to get them out of coming to the Saturday school class to get their grades up are you. And most of the parents, 99.9% of the parents would tell their kids, you're going to Mr. Garnier's class on Saturday and you're getting your grades up. And that had nothing to do with getting paid or looking good. That had to do with I had a true understanding of these young kids of color, because again, I used to be one of those kids of color, and I used to be a kid who understood what was kind of a struggle within Poway Unified School District.
Even though it was a struggle for you, you were one of the lucky ones. You had both parents, am I correct?
I did, yeah.
And they were there to help you.
Yes.
And a lot of those don't have anything.
And I think that's a great point. Part of the reason why I was successful coming out of the Poway Unified School District. My father, as I was telling you guys earlier, my father and mother are both from South Central Los Angeles. My dad was a Tookie Williams Crip back in the 70s, and got himself in a little bit of trouble. And the judge at the time told him, either you go to the military or we put you in jail. And my dad decided, you know what, I'm going to the military. So the military brought him from South Central Los Angeles down to San Diego. San Diego brought us to the Poway Unified School District, and my mom and dad got married at 18 and 19, still married today. And they were a great influence on my success in their own battles, their own fights that they had to go through with the Poway Unified School District. Me being one of not too many other black kids within the school district. They went through their own struggles and own battles to make sure that my sister and I had the same education as our white counterparts.
Are you still living in Poway?
They're still in Poway, still the same house, still the same place, and they're an inspiration to many.
So you've been in the same place all these years. You haven't been in trouble. You don't have any kind of criminal record. You're a Marine Corps officer, yet you're treated like a piece of trash.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's right. That's right. Yeah. And that's probably the most challenging part too, as well as you think these are the people that I grew up with, and now I've also went and I've gone and I've served my country, and I've come back as you would feel almost a conqueror, back to the community that I grew up in. And instead of getting the
accolades and parade,
or hey, thank you for being one of those that is a success story from our community, I've turned into a threat within the community.
Have you considered boycotting or starting a boycott of Poway? That would really bring a lot of very focused attention. And once you do a boycott, the damage can last for years, and if people see momentum building for that,
sure,
they tend to back down very quickly.
Sure.
Right now we feel alone, to be honest. In our community, we've had friends turn away from us, and a lot of people have their blinders on. They don't want to see the problems that are there. They think we're making a mountain out of a molehill. So we feel very alone. We feel very isolated. And the boycott idea never crossed our minds.
Yeah.
So that would draw in people from the outside,
Mm-hmm.
and then that would have an economic impact on Poway. People would not want to buy homes there. They wouldn't want to support the businesses. Boycotts are very effective if they're run properly.
Right. Yes, sir.
Meaning they have to be sustained.
Right.
You got to look at being in place at least a year and a half. You can't just say on Fridays we're not going to go to Poway.
Sure. Right.
You got to decide what will satisfy your demand. What is your demand? What will satisfy it? Write letters to the various officials, the mayor,
Right.
the city council members, the various businesses. To write letters and say we're the tourism. We're going to advocate a boycott of Poway, and these are the signatures on the petition that we have so far. This is what we want to see happen. What are your demands? And when you write those letters, then you can run a sustained campaign from the outside. You don't even need the people on the inside, because they're going to be the ones coming in to spend money. And you take that money away, they're going to be the ones coming in to buy homes who aren't going to come there. And then there becomes national focus and attention on stations like Al Jazeera,
Sure.
Link TV,
Sure.
Democracy Now, Free Speech TV, Pacifica Network.
Right. Right.
So we can do some very effective things. Look at the history of boycotts,
Right.
which I've read up quite a bit, and we saw what happened with Rosa Parks
Sure.
and Montgomery. We've seen very effective things. You may not be aware that Verizon tried to monitor all of the text messages that came through a system that was that was pro-choice. Took 4 days for that boycott to make Verizon take that service down. 4 days.
Wow.
So that's one of the most powerful means. And again, this is why we're asking for the audience to distribute this story in whatever form you're getting it through your social media. And if you can bring resources to bear on this, we really appreciate your support in this. So that is absolutely a horrific story. Those are horrific stories of children who need help,
Sure.
who are basically being punished. And this is why we have this primitive, punishment-oriented society, which I believe we should have much more compassion
Yes.
for each other. In other words, if someone makes a mistake, or if your kid makes a mistake, you don't beat him to death. You take the child and you try to guide them into a situation where they become productive. And why do we do that to adults? Why do we do that to each other? We keep punishing. And so this is why we've done a whole series of shows on higher level of loving. And I believe that's intrinsic to us having a better society. We have to become much more forgiving. We've got to become much more supportive. And the issue that these young people are having can be yours just as well, just as quick. So we all have to stand together. And we've seen examples of that over and over again. The Jews in Germany, some people weren't being taken away and killed, but they came back later and killed them. So we've seen this example for why we have to stand together as American citizens to stand up for justice. So, give me some more. You give me some more stories. What else do you want to share?
About your upbringing growing up.
Yeah, well, I think about my upbringing, and again, I give a lot of credit to Poway Unified School District for a lot of the successes that I've had. But I do know that a lot of the successes that I have had also came again because my parents were advocates for me. I think of one time in particular. I was in fourth grade, and I was being yelled at by a teacher, being somewhat berated. She was calling me a boy as well, and my mom was coming in to drop off lunch for me, and she heard this, teacher yelling at me and calling me a boy. And my mom, from there, said, "You will not address my son that way." And the teacher told her to mind her own business, basically, and get on out of there. My mom went to the principal, and the principal almost told her the same thing. So my mother, being the mother that she is, got a garden chair and sat out in front of my classroom for an entire week, just to make her presence known. And I'll tell you what, that teacher never again ever berated me, never called me a boy ever again.
I love that. She sounds like I used to be.
That's right. And she's a good, strong woman, strong black woman, and love her to death. And I could go on and on and on about stories within the Poway Unified School District. Again, Kim had brought up the issue about a noose that was found at Ranch Parental High School just in 2011, roughly 2011, and it had a young black girl's name on there, on the noose, with nigger written on there, and some other things as well. And instead of the school taking any action, they said that it was a misunderstanding, and no punishment was handed out to the white child who made the noose or who wrote these, despicable racial slurs against this young.
So they identified the child, and the child wasn't punished.
I identified the child, but he was not punished.
So this goes into the same thing where we have church bombings, and they say, "Oh, that's not terrorism.
Yes.
That's a hate crime."
That's right. That's right.
And so they have pulled back the FBI's task force that looks into hate crimes and that looks into domestic terrorism. They've disbanded the most effective people in that unit. And that's because if they do this, if they label these things as domestic terrorism, they'll have to investigate themselves.
That's exactly
That's a
right.
great point. That's exactly right. Yeah.
So we are in peril as American people. You know, I have been through horrific racial incidents myself growing up in Alabama. And this is why these things are so powerful to me, to see this still occurring in 2015. It has nothing to do with the year, but it has to do with human nature.
Sure,
Yes.
that's right. That's right.
So these things are always going to be present with us. We have to learn ways of managing those and to mitigate the damage in which is inflicted upon our children and families. That's the integral part of it. So we have the noose. We have the way you were talked to, the way you were treated as a parent, the way you were treated during the election. The children that have been prevented from getting justice. You said you have a lot more. Give me another incident.
I think probably the hardest thing of it all, honestly, is going through this situation with the restraining order that's been placed on me is a 3-year restraining order.
The maximum harshest sentence she could hand down.
She placed on me.
Who is she?
The Judge Tamila Ipima,
And she is in what city?
San Diego.
Yeah, she hit me with the hardest punishment that you possibly can get.
No violence, no threats. Just a man speaking up against discrimination. That's it.
Yeah. So 3 years, and I think the idea was for us to pack up our stuff and go to another school because the restraining order is simply against the principal. It has nothing to do with the school. I can talk to all the teachers. I can do whatever I want, but the restraining order is against simply the principal. The principal leaves, I can go back to the school. But that's not what we thought would be the right choice for our family. So we decided that we are appealing the judge's decision because we firmly believe that we're well within our First Amendment rights of freedom of speech. And we're leaving our children in this school more of anything because we're at that school first and foremost. But this is where our kids belong.
Their friends are there.
Their friends are there. Their life is there. It's just unfortunate that their dad can't be there. But we firmly believe that that will change.
Chris never missed one field trip, one assembly, anything. He never missed anything. He was there for everything, for not just his son, but my daughter, his stepdaughter. And now when the kids get an award or they're in a play, I have to do FaceTime so that Chris doesn't miss it. But the kids' hearts are breaking. They want their daddy there. They want their daddy there. And the school is stepping on parental rights, crushing parental rights, and saying that the way they want to run things is far more important than any parent desires to advocate for their child.
And I think Kim touches on a really great point. Is now we're talking about parental rights. Say that I wasn't advocating for black students or students of color. Say I was advocating for kids of autism or something of that nature. And the school district didn't like the way that I was advocating for my child of autism or my child of fill in the blank. With Judge Ipima's decision now, it gives the school district power over the parent because the school district can now say that we do not like this parent or we do not like how this parent is advocating for their child, so we can now put a restraining order on this on this parent to prevent them from continuing to advocate for their child. So what it does in essence for someone like me as a black man, it says I'm just going to pack my stuff up and move my black family out of the Poway Unified School District.
Segregation right there.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Now, have you been to your assembly member?
Have not been to my assembly member, but have been in touch with Representative Scott Peters on multiple occasions, and he continues to tell me that he can't do anything until it's out of the legal system.
Well, I know a Riverside County assembly member that is very much an advocate for parental rights. Perhaps that is a way to get through, to get some type of justice. So we're going to continue to explore what the options are and try to rally support from leadership within San Diego that has experience with this. People like George Herbert Walker Smith, and Elise Smith, not Doctor, but Reverend Elise Smith Cooper, who's going to be coming here. I want you to have a chance to meet these people. Activist San Diego, San Diego Coalition for Peace and Justice. These are all groups that can be integral in terms of supporting you in those particular efforts. And this is why I've been maintaining relationships with a number of organizations for years, and will expose you and your story to them.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
We also have a mobile app. We have a mobile app in which parents can and people, advocates can communicate securely with one another without anyone else being able to get inside of it, except for those people that are allowed to be part of the mobile app. So, for example, if someone needs medical attention and there's a riot on 4th Avenue, and someone needs a doctor, they can go through the mobile app, because you're not going to be able to hear a telephone ringing very easily. And who do you call? You don't have everybody's number there, but you do have the mobile app, and you can say doctor needed at 4th and Broadway for whatever. So we have some very sophisticated technologies in place to help people stand up for their human rights, and we're going to make those all available to you. In terms of striking back and trying to create a balance with this whole situation. So you're not alone. And I don't think anybody out here watching this can say to them that they're alone. And again, the best way you can do this is to post this on social media, put it out on Twitter, get it up on Facebook, and try to rally support for this family, because we cannot allow this type of injustice to stand. Again, I'm going to turn it back over to you to say anything you want to say. You want to bring up another incident, call to action to the public, reinforcement, anything you think of that you forgot to add into this?
I think probably the biggest or the last thing that I would throw in there is within Poway Unified School District is the lack of ability to express grievances against people in higher positions, and that's very, very, very unfortunate and tough, because when you have people in higher positions that might have a little lack of tolerance in their hearts, and you want to express that to the higher ups, there's not really an avenue to do that, and that's to me, first of all, unfortunate, but also set up that way on purpose to prevent people from making legitimate, valid complaints about how their children are being treated, or how they're being treated as a parent, or how we might see a teacher being treated, or a custodian at the school, or fill in the blank. And it's something that I believe the school district is lacking, and something that we absolutely need, because it's most of the people in the higher positions, particularly the superintendent, that has really been a catalyst to a lot of these intolerances. There's not a means to express grievances about
hold people
and hold people accountable. And that's probably the biggest challenge. There's no real way set to hold people accountable for their misguided steps, their lack of their lack of tolerance.
And this is so much bigger than Chris and I, our family, the students who are affected in this area. This is for all of us. We're fighting an uphill battle, but we're in roller skates. And if you're not constantly trying to roll your way up that hill, you're going to slide right back down. And we all need to be involved, and we need to stand up to these people who think they can abuse their power.
Yeah, absolutely.
You said that there are other people, parents, that are brown of color.
Yep.
What are they doing? I mean, you said that you feel all alone. Mm-hmm. Are they disregarding this situation also?
No, I'm sorry. People are afraid. They see what's happened to our family, and we have a strong support unit with our family, our parents, things like that. We've been in this district for a long time. We know a lot of people, and if they can do this to us, what can they do to the single mom who's trying to fight for her kid? You know, what can they do to the people who just moved in and they don't want the enemies that we have now? People are afraid. We get text messages and emails and say, keep doing this. But it's a whisper, and it's in the background. And we have big targets on us.
And to answer that question as well, yeah, you have to understand that even at Painted Rock at our kids' school, there's 630-ish kids about, and 4 are black. So there's not that many families in the first place that truly understand the strife that Kim and I have had to go through. And even those black families that are around are really, truly terrified. They see a black man like myself being vocal and speaking out, and next thing you know, a restraining order comes on, and that's the last thing that these other fathers or other people of color want to happen to them.
It can damage their military career as well. A lot of them in the military.
Right. That's right. They damage it could damage all kinds of things for them.
Can't have a firearm, and
That's exactly right.
Or their kids maybe won't make the team when they try out. Or all of a sudden their kids' grades are slipping. Our son, right after the restraining order came down, he was pulled off the playground for being too aggressive.
Yeah. And again, me, I as a father, as his only legal guardian around, I couldn't even go to the school at this juncture to be his advocate and say, why would you pull my son off? I'm grateful because another yard duty who was friends with Kim had said, hey, just so you know, whispered in her ear, just so you know, this other yard duty took Winslow off the field, and he didn't do anything differently than the other kids. He wasn't more aggressive. He took him off the field, and my amazing wife, amazing stepmom, went and then did what my mom did almost, and went to the school and just watched his playtime, his lunch stuff for a week, just to make sure that the people at the school knew that though Dad couldn't be there, Winslow still had an advocate to make sure that he was being looked after and taken care of.
wow.
That must be really tough for both of you, especially you. Me as a parent,
Yeah.
I don't know what I would do.
Yeah.
They could not keep me off. They could not.
Yeah.
They had to throw me out during a baseball
Mm-hmm.
because I would not stay quiet.
Yeah.
right.
So I could imagine how tough it is, especially you that went through the Marines. Oh my gosh, you guys can't stay quiet.
We
That's
can't. No, we can't. But this is the greatest part of it is, I believe they want me to look like an animal, and as this restraining order goes through, my objective is to maintain my calm during the storm. They want to keep me away from my child. I had to really be away from my child for 2 years during my time in the Middle East. So not being able to go to school, knowing that Kim is there, gives me a lot of peace, and knowing that at 3:15 he'll be right back with me, and I'll be able to put my arms around him and love him. The challenging part, though, as Kim said, comes from the fact of as he wins awards and as he goes through spelling bees and things of that nature, that I'm not allowed to be around, and I always have been. And I've taken on a huge role that I love, being a stepfather to my daughter, Talia. And her father is not as involved in her life as well. So she's my little girl, and she always asks, when does Daddy Chris get to come back to school with us? And it's a heartbreaker. It really, really is. And I let the kids know, hey, we're fighting the good fight. And I'm going to be the calm, gentle, the exact opposite of what the school district has tried to paint me to be.
That's excellent. I like the way you think.
Thank you.
That's good.
Thank you.
It almost seems like it's hard to believe
Yeah.
that they are not allowing a parent to be a parent
Yes.
in a public school.
Yes.
Public school.
That's
Yes.
horrifying.
It is.
What else could they do?
Yeah, and
Yes.
that's the biggest
Yes.
question. That's why I said the biggest is now we're talking about parental rights. Being an advocate for your
They're
child.
taking that
That's
away
exactly right.
from you.
And who has the authority to do that? There's no, unless you're abusing your child or something of that nature, there is no court that has the ability to take away your parental rights, and that's what Judge Ipima and the long run has done, is she's taken away my rights as a parent.
And the district's attorney, who's being investigated for his
Unscrupulous, fraudulent,
legal behavior.
legal behavior throughout.
He compared in his opening statements Chris to Adam Lanza at Sandy Hook.
Yeah. He said that we don't want another Sandy Hook. So a man who has raised my right hand, swore to protect the Constitution of the United States. Now I'm being compared to a crazy, what we would say, I would consider him crazy, young, white, entitled man from Sandy Hook who did a mass shooting, and this is what this attorney had compared me to in front of Judge Ipima.
Well, I mean, there's a long history of that, disrespecting black veterans in this country, whereas black men haven't gotten their Medal of Honor and
Yes.
and various things of that nature, as well as being lynched and murdered.
That's right.
When they have come back from World War II and other wars, you know, and so this is a long legacy of injustice, and a lot of it is because people are afraid to stand up. Those people are cowards that are within your Poway School District, but we're going to muster up a lot of attention on this and effective powers that perhaps can, you know, turn this whole thing around. It really pains me to know that this kind of thing can happen, that a parent can get a restraining order. You're really going to have to know about parental rights of consent, because they can end up taking your kids away from you, utilizing this by trying to force you to take a psychotropic or force your kid to take a psychotropic drug. Or interrogating your child and making some type of interpretation that there's abuse going on at home or something inappropriate.
They asked to speak with our children, the psychiatrist, or excuse me, the therapist at this school, and we said no.
Yes,
Good.
We said no.
We said no.
That's a parental right to consent.
That's right. That's right. And what business of hers, the school psychiatrist, to be in our business as parents? If we want our child to go to a therapist, we'll pick the therapist and send our child to
And
that
I guarantee you, if you had done that, you would have been losing custody of your kids. We see it all the time.
Absolutely right.
So that's why I encourage everyone to go to cchrint.org, Citizens Commission on Human Rights, and they have a lot of great videos, information on parental rights, because that's the new weapon that they're using against parents, is using psychiatrists to take away the custody of kids. This is a cash cow for these organizations. They get $4,000 into the county from Social Security, and then they delve that out to civilian social services agencies. We went through a parental training just to see what they would say and how they would do it, and we asked them, don't you know that they're drugging these kids and that these kids are becoming vegetables? And they go, yeah, we know that, but they're much more calm. So the important thing to understand is that there are 8 million children in America right now that are being given psychotropic. 56,000 of those are in the Los Angeles metro area. And of that 8 million, 1 million of those kids are below the age of 5. They're giving kids psychotropic medications as young as 6 months. So how do you diagnose a child with ADHD or major depression or anxiety at the age of 6 months?
It's impossible.
It's with play therapy. They take a ball and they roll the ball to the child, and depending upon whether he grabs the ball or rolls it back, he can be diagnosed with anxiety disorder and given a psychotropic.
Wow.
That's the test.
At 6 months. Wow.
We have 5-year-olds. So there's a plethora of information, and so this is a really serious thing. Once they got you in their sights, what I have seen is that they come after parents. This is why we have to defend these parents, because if we see them go down, your turn is next. It's not like you're impervious to this. Who are you going to go to when they come for you, or if they come for you? Because, again, this is cash for kids we're talking about now. This is not anything dealing with ethics or morality. This is all about cash in the long run. And once they get you in the sights, the weapons that they can utilize on you from CPS, from Child Protective Services, it's a formidable arena that you're stepping into, because they've got some powerful tools. So in the name of protecting the kids,
Yeah.
they can destroy these families. And we see so many families that are destroyed. My recommendation is to go on the Facebook. Look at the stories on Facebook. There are a lot of parental groups. I have people on Facebook making pages for me. Stories for Walter Davis, videos for Walter Davis. I get videos submitted all the time. We're keeping track of this, by the way, also on our blog, Citizens Demanding Justice and Progressive Thinkers. We're keeping track on these types of cases throughout the world, in Australia, Germany. We just helped a woman in Russia with her child. We were on Russia Today television. So we have stories from Texas, Pennsylvania, Arkansas, Utah, California, all over. So please take a look at our website, Citizens Demanding Justice, and you'll see how we document all of these stories that are happening like this. What else do you want to tell the audience?
Can I say something really quick about my story?
Yes, please.
I worked in Loma Linda. I was a respiratory therapist. Later on, I left that because I needed to take care of my daughter. She was a teenager. I went and I was taking care of an orthopedic department. There were about maybe 8 to 10 orthopedic surgeons that I was in charge of. I started the whole department in Loma Linda. Well, long story short, I had a lot of hours to put into that job. I left my daughter and my son with my mom in my house. She was taking care of my kids, and I thought, well, that's the closest. A grandma taking care of my kids. Well, my daughter was a teenager. She had complaints, like any other teenager. I did not know that this school therapist spoke to her. 3 o'clock, I will never forget this. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I get a call from this person saying, if you don't take your mother out of the house, we will take your kids away. Me as a mother, had those kids for 9 months? Oh, no, no, no.
Yes.
I dropped the pen, I dropped everything, picked up my purse, didn't say anything to anybody. I went home with my heart broken. I had to find a place for my mother that same night.
Wow.
And that's because they took my daughter, spoke to her in school. And then I had to educate my children to let them know what had happened. Because my daughter says, Mom, I didn't know that they were going to do that. You have to educate your children.
Absolutely.
Let them know what those people are doing, because if not, they're not going to have a mom and a dad to come home to.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up. It's something that Kim and I have, as we've gone through this, we've kind of got some of that same advice. How do we talk to our children about daddy having a restraining order, not going to school? And one of the biggest things was talk to them, be honest with them, and let them know the truth. And, I think a lot of times parents are nervous to tell their kids the truth of what's going on. And I think it's more... not telling your kids the truth is more of a burden or a hindrance, or could lead to disaster if you don't if you're not honest and truly try to speak with your children and educate them. So as Kim and I've gone through this situation, we've been as forthright with Talia and Winslow as we possibly can, so they understand that Daddy and Mommy we're fighting the good fight. We're trying to do what's right, and they have a good knowledge of what we're trying to do and why we're trying to do this.
That's fantastic. I've seen people, parents, that try and protect their children so much that when they grow up, they're just shocked.
Absolutely.
And they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
They do not know how to deal with
That's
the people
right.
outside in
That's
the
right.
world.
That's right.
They don't know anything.
That's right.
No coping
Because
skills.
the parents love them that much.
Yeah. I just don't think that's the case. I think more of anything, the more that we discipline our children, obviously, and the more that we show them, I don't mean but discipline not as far as like grounding or something like that, but discipline as far as showing them what's right and the right ways to go about things, and ethics and morals and things of that nature, and when it's appropriate to fight for what you believe. If you're able to discipline your kids in that nature, your child will be able to go out and really make it in this world, as opposed to holding them back and not exposing them to things, because then when they see the real world, it is.
Oh, I know that.
Yeah.
My mom told me something like that.
That's exactly, yes,
You
ma'am.
know?
That's exactly right.
Children, to me, they were never little children.
Mm.
They were little adults
That's
in
right.
a children's body.
That's right.
And if you sit down and talk to them and let them understand, allow them to understand what you're telling them, how the world is in their own little
Yes.
world,
Right.
you have it made.
Absolutely.
And they have it made.
Yes.
It's fantastic advice, and I thank you for it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, so again, very important. What you did, whether you knew it or not, is that you observed something called parental right to consent. When you denied the access to the psychiatrist to talk to your children, which is really a good thing that you did it. So everybody needs to be aware that there is a such thing called parental right to consent. Again, on cchr.int.org, you can see a copy of this and become much more aware of this. There's also a mobile app called SPED mobile app, SPED, which you can download from Google Play. That'll give you a lot of the terminology in terms of what it means when you're looking at parental right to consent. So in my particular case, once again, my grandmother, I remember the police beating up everyone in Birmingham, and they beat my 67-year-old grandmother up. And I remember the groceries going down the sidewalk, the cans, the oranges rolling down. And she said to me, "Don't you ever hate as long as you live." And so we had a conversation about hate. And so again, as we talked about earlier, it's integral that we teach our children how to think and not what to
That's
think.
exactly right.
And that's what you alluded to, is talking to your children, getting them into a group, because they can be taken away from you. You can be taken away from your kids. Leaving Italy and going to Japan, we stopped in Los Angeles in the 1980s. And my little girl, the first time seeing grandmother's house, was all excited, was running around in the house. And then right when I said, "Audria, stop running, you're going to hurt yourself," she ran into the corner of a sofa, which had a very ornate kind of oak carving in it, an eagle, and cut her cheek. So I took my kid to the emergency room. I couldn't stop the bleeding with cold cloth or ice. And when I took her to the emergency room, a social worker comes in and goes, "How did this happen?" I said, "She ran into a sofa and cut her cheek." "No, that's not what happened." I said, "Are you telling me I'm a liar? Yes, that is what I'm saying." Very disrespectful, very demeaning, very condescending to me. Now here I'm in the military. My career can be over. If I get found guilty of child abuse, my career is done.
Yeah.
And fortunately, they took my kid in the emergency room, and I got her back. But I was one of the lucky parents.
Sure.
And so this relates to your case in that I've seen them, once they turn things like a restraining order onto the parent, they then tend to come after parents through the psychiatrist,
Sure.
through the nurses, through the social workers. This is how they then start attacking families.
Sure.
Because they can make a lot of money by separating your family. And especially if there's a white child involved, there is a scarcity of white kids up on adoption. So white mothers really have it worse than others, so to speak, in that area. But the women of color, they don't respect you. They don't respect your rights. So then you have it bad,
Yeah.
just as well.
Right.
But there's an angle to both, the black and the white, the people of color thing. So that's why we all have to be unified in our efforts to fight back and support one another. Anything else? Anything else you want to share with the audience about your story or incidences? I'm here for you to help you project your message.
I think the last thing I think I want to say is that Kim and I, our relationship has grown immensely. We have become more unified. Our belief in our cause and our belief in our voice has gotten stronger. I'm not saying that the pain of not being around the kids or the pain of some of the things that have happened in the past has not dissipated, because it's still there. But in the long run, in the end, I firmly believe that we will prevail. We'll be victorious. I'll be back at school with my children, and we have faith in that. We really truly have faith in that, and it's almost, like I said, a blessing. It is almost a blessing in disguise because it has made our family stronger. We become a stronger family unit.
That's fantastic. Usually, some couples, they separate. They allow that to separate them.
Right.
And you guys became greater unity. That is fantastic.
Yeah.
That's great. I was going to ask you, you want to mention that show we had not too long ago, a few weeks ago, where this parent went to the hospital and they didn't allow her to take her child back home? It was that lady. We had a show a couple of weeks ago where they took they even changed the child's name in the hospital so she would not be able to find her child.
Wow.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of corruption in the CPS and social worker type networks, and a lady didn't get her child back until he was 17, 19. I think he was 19. He found her on Facebook.
He found her.
Wow.
Oh, what happened was the child, his cousins were taking him out of the car, and his arm got closed in the car door, so the arm got broken. He was a 2-year-old. So if you have an accident with your kid and you take your kid to the emergency room, your child can be taken away. They can get you for neglect. But kids are going to have broken arms. Kids are going to get hurt. But what we need to be aware of is that there's this hair trigger response to just take kids away. The parents are abusive and they just want to take them away. So you really got to be careful about accidents and how you report them and who you tell it to.
Yeah.
Because in this case, the kid had a broken arm, and they took the child away from the mom. She didn't get the child back, and he was abused by the foster care parents. We've had incidences where a child was burned over 90% of the body by the foster care parents, and they were still allowed to adopt the child because there's so much money involved with this.
Right. Right.
It sounds unbelievable, but it's not. I never in a million years thought something like this could happen to my family. And I know what you're saying is true. And that's why we can't be apathetic.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
That poor mom, she said that they walked her out. The security, they called security and walked her out of the hospital
Wow.
without her baby. And she's lucky. She was one of the lucky mothers that got her baby, even when he was a little older.
They changed the baby's name. We have incidents where parents are having their babies put up on Craigslist looking for adoptive parents. The social workers are putting the babies on Craigslist.
Well, the social workers are. Wow.
And it's from all over the country. I mean, it's especially states like Missouri, Pennsylvania. We've had Alabama. It's pretty much runs the gamut in terms of states and countries, because a lot of countries are denied their financial aid if they don't adopt the same kind of laws like America. So Australia is horrible. Canada's got some terrible things happening. Germany, France. Horrible things that are happening around the world. So
Now even here with the Indian Americans,
well, yes.
CPS, they hired, I was reading, they hired this Indian to work for CPS. What they did was they would say, well, these children are, we need to take care of these children. So they would send the Indian American to go get the children. The only thing is that they knew exactly when the parents were away from the home. And they didn't even ask the parents. They just grabbed the children, put them in the car.
Wow.
And once these people have these children, there's not much a parent can do.
Right.
They don't know where the child is.
Right. Right. Wow.
And I read this because he was hurting. He says, I did this to my people. He was hurting. He was sad that he did that. But it was too late.
Yeah.
Right. So again, we have a plethora of examples for why we need to be more unified and supportive of one another. And that's just why we're doing this particular show. to highlight these parents and the plight that you're in. And we're hoping that we can assuage that by generating unity. And the only way that we can combat this is to be compassionate and demonstrate love for one another and unity. Those are the only things that are going to turn these authoritative or authoritarian kind of things around. And this is not the first time we've experienced this in our culture. We've had this going on for a very long time. So, were you able to express all the things you wanted to? Is there anything else? And of course, we can add on to this. It can be a part two. But
I think last thing I want to say, I think Kim and I are just grateful for both of you,
Thank
Mr. Davis,
you.
ma'am, honestly, for inviting us out and letting us tell our story.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're very, very appreciative of you and your work and your effort, and honored to be here.
You're good people, and there's a lot of good people out there, but they have to do something. They have to write to somebody. They have to take action. They have to learn and listen. So thank you for what you do, and I hope other people out there follow in your footsteps.
Yeah, I know they will. You guys are fantastic examples. Thank you.
well, thank you very much, and thank you, audience, for watching and listening. Please share the story. We really appreciate you paying attention to our shows.
Thank you for listening, and don't forget to listen to Progress in Your World also.